Now at part 2 of this second lecture of Tepper, and this is diverse ecologies. Loss is very much at the heart of the text, the figure of the reindeer which reappears, and Tepper's repeated reference to the Sami, who are known to us to some extent still, I think, as Laplanders. These are people who live indigenous to northern Finland, and they're just enormously in tune with the land. It's just astonishing. They have these reindeer herds. They just really don't use metal very much at all. They have almost no ecological impact on the land. It's just astonishing. It's an astonishing community. And Stavia laments the loss and the hurt damage to the ecology brought about by men's disasters. Chernin doesn't care. Right? So on page 216, they have this discussion. And the time that they spend together essentially in the wilderness there's a reason for that. It's like they have to be away from, they essentially have to test out what this relationship would be like. And when they're in nature, they can talk. It's very important. But anyway, Chernin says, at one time, life was varied. And Septimius says, it may still be varied across the desolations. Who knows what may exist? Chernin says, who cares if we can't reach them? Here it is all the same. Women's country inside the walls, garrisons outside the walls. Gypsies and bandits moving among us like jackals on 216. Okay, so there are these desolations, which I mentioned briefly in the first lecture. And there really are these places, as I also mentioned, where basically there are, as I mentioned, the official name for them in America is sacrifice zones or sacrifice rooms, where it's just too dangerous to go to these places. They can't be cleaned up because they're hot, and so their containments are, you build big concrete containments around these hot areas so people can't get to them because they'll die, and so that they can't pick up the earth and so on. The problem is that, of course, the radiation, that the materials that are hot, they're going to get wet and it's going to go into the groundwater, and okay, you can see what's coming. But anyway, Tepper differentiates between those who care for the world and those who take it, basically take from it and take it for granted. And even Chernin, who isn't dumb, gets the idea that there is a way of working to the world which is more organized, and he sees the organization of it. There are then two major forces. I sort of talked about this before: the women's country and the garrisons. But also there are these people who essentially are the information stream, the travelers, the bandits, the women living outside the walls, and this earlier vestige of this insane culture that's left, Holy Land, which is inbred and will not survive. And Septimius hints at the idea that the women were already organizing, like even before the disaster, they were getting ready. They could see this coming, and they were like, "We've had enough. No more male rage. No more male explanations for why we had to go to war and why you had to protect your pissing ground and why you're afraid that they've got a bigger penis than you do, or they're more sexually, capable, or whatever. Whatever the stupid, basically, ideas are that brought you to war. It's like, nah, those are men's ideas that are fundamentally, you can see them rooted in the playground. This is where they come from. And Septimius says, I believe that Anvil was there before the convulsion, so before the disasters that created this system, along with its power plant and most of its factories. So Anvil was already establishing this system of the beginning. This is where it started. And Costi says, why did they split off? I should think life would be easier if cities were larger. Okay, so it's a good question. And Septimius shook his head, gesturing to a great wide motion, including the surrounding fields and sea. Food, fuel, and trade, good nieces. They grow what they can within an hour or so's travel of town on 165. Well, we recognize this as being locavorism. That is, you have limits to growth. You observe those limits to growth. You don't allow the population to get too big. You keep populations limited so that they don't put too much impact. They don't have too much impact on the area. You live sustainably. You treat the earth properly. Okay.